Yeah, I did. Honorable members, at the break, we were debating the mining bill. I presume we are now ready. Wow. The chair recognizes the honorable member for North Andros and the Berry Islands. Welcome to the front row.
Oh, yeah, you want front row?
Now,
This is literally a hot seat. Madam Speaker, like the GPF, this is literally a hot
at
seat.
least you're sitting next to a doctor, eh?
Yeah. Hopefully too much don't rub off for me. Madam Speaker, it is always an honor for me to speak in this honorable house to represent the great, dedicated, and hard-working people of North Andros and the Berry Islands. I count it as a privilege to be able to speak on their behalf. Firstly, I would like to express my gratitude to my Heavenly Father for the opportunity to be here today and acknowledge the gift of life. I will continue to give recognition and appreciation unto His name. According to Psalms 34:1, I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. Secondly, I'd like to thank my mother, Lenora Jean Gray Brennan, all the way in beautiful Mangrove Key, Andros. My grandmother, Pandora Veronica Miller. My sons, Caden, Carter, Kimel, and Cameron. Four handsome boys. And to my family for their unwavering support and unselfish love. To the residents of North Andros and the Berry Islands, I am dedicated to representing you and fulfilling my duties here. Madam Speaker, I would like to send condolences to a few families that lost their loved ones. To the Johnson family in North Andros, to the Sanders family in Greater Harbour Key, to the Scrivella family in North Andros, the Moxie family in Mangrove Key, Andros, and the Bain family in Mangrove Key, Andros. Madam Speaker, this past weekend, the Berry Islands experienced bushfires. I am indeed grateful that no lives were lost or no damage to any property. The Berry Islands fighting efforts began on March 27 and was largely contained by March 29th, with ongoing patrols addressing hotspots until April 1st. The community response included various local organizations and volunteers with leadership from the Berry Islands Fire Rescue and support from the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Notable contributions came from the local government officials, heavy equipment operators, and community members, including second homeowners and the Haitian community. The Berry Islands Fire Rescue, funded by the Berry Islands Association, Second Homeowners Organization, played a significant role in the firefighting efforts. The physical fighting efforts were led by the volunteer Chief Lyndon Roll, Assistant Fire Chief Godfrey Francis II, and Volunteer Fire Rescue Coordinator and Deputy Chief Counselor Kevin Wallace. The Royal Bahamas Police Force, Berry Islands Division, led by Officer in Charge Superintendent Achara James, received assistance from the deployed officers from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, Nassau Fire Branch. The Berry Islands Local Government Island Administrator Kenwood Cartwright, Chief Counselor Tracy Dean, coordinated supplies, while Counselor Richard Swan operated drones. Wallace operated backhoes, and the Counselor Norman Bastian provided support. Heavy equipment operators such as Varian VJ Reckley, Sanders, Barco Company, Gwan Sanders, A&A, Otley Company, Tevin Dane, Brennan Trucking, Winders Construction, Simmons Road Construction Company, and Marquis Truck Service also contributed significantly. Additional assistance came from developers of Vital Key, led by Javier Moron and Erickson Brennan, along with their numerous employees, Great Harbor Management Company, the Townhouse Association, Beach Villa Associations, Bahamas Customs led by Officer Bernard Bastian, and the Department of Immigration led by Officer in Charge Giovanni Musgrove also provided support. Numerous other volunteers include Vincent Adley, Junior Martin, Daniel Roll, Lamont Gomez, Billy Smith, Frederick Roll, Aiden Roll, Turk McCauley, Hiram Fernando, and Gilbert Bain. We recognize them all for their efforts. Madam Speaker, these incidents highlight the need for proper equipment and manpowering during emergencies. As leaders, it is our duty to ensure our islands are well prepared. I am grateful the residents acted quickly, preventing the fire from spreading. Madam Speaker, the work continues in the constituency. I would like to congratulate Ms. Charlotte Knowles Thompson as she celebrates her 10th year anniversary. Madam Speaker, I believe in honor where it is due. Over the last 10 years, Ms. Charlotte Thompson has organized college fairs, Zoom meetings, and online conferences during the pandemic to ensure students receive information from various U.S. and Canadian schools despite travel restrictions. Many of them received scholarships from various universities and colleges from across the United States and Canada. For the past 4 years, I have collaborated with Ms. Charlotte Thompson to ensure that NABI students are given the opportunity to pursue tertiary education. I acknowledge the effort she has put in this endeavor and recognize her 10th year of supporting the educational advancement of our country's youth. Madam Speaker, let me take a few minutes to just highlight North Andros updates and announcements. North and Central Andros Primary School track and field meet begin tomorrow. I look forward to this event. Construction of the roadway in Red Bay continues and near 90% completed after 30 years plus of years of neglect. Ramp and docks are being built and renovated in Nicholstown, Countstown, Low Sound, Red Base, and Mastic Point. Y'all hear that? North and South Blanket Sound, Standard Creek, Great Harbor Key, your docks and seawalls are well on the way. The arrival of the Sea Dream cruise line is expected on April 4th, 6th, and the 13th at the Morgan's Bluff. Local government held a flag raising ceremony, attended a church service, and organized a lunchtime bingo. During the month of local government, there was the time capsule concealment and planting of a lignum vitae tree ceremony. Junior Council organized Spirit Day at the school where various activities for the students. Junior Council visited senior citizen homes and assisted with the cleanup initiatives. Miss Loretta Phillips celebrated her 100th birthday on Friday, March 28. She is indeed blessed and highly favored to witness a century. 100 years. God is good. In the front. The Cancer Society of North Andros held a fun walk and run celebration March 29th, along with a south-south and a prayer meeting. Countstown will host its annual homecoming during the Easter weekend, starting with a boat excursion and family fun activities. Mastic Point will also have its annual homecoming over the Easter weekend with a live band, Bohemian Superstars, and a beach party. Low Sound will host its annual Easter White Splash on the Key during the Easter weekend. Red Bay's annual Snapper Fest will be held from the May 15th to the 17th. Local government conducted a cleanup activities at 2 illegal dump sites in Low Sound and Mastic Point. A major cleanup of Alfonso Smith Regatta site took place. These are all updates from North Andros that's happening, going on. Various cleanup was performed along Morgan's Bluff Highway, Nicholstown Highway, and Queens Highway. Sometimes you gotta highlight these things because people say nothing's happening. Because we don't take pictures all day, every day, and send videos, things are not happening. So today, I want to take time out. I want to take time out to let them know things are happening. A routine cleanup was carried out at the airport with a special initiative to remove debris from the charter section. Nicholstown Township plans a bulk garbage pickup this week. Lowstown Township partnered with local contractors for a cleanup campaign in the settlement. Post office and road traffic have made significant progress in relocating and condemned administrative complex. 70% of the individuals on the PS-PEP program have transitioned or in the process of transitioning to month-to-month status. Madam Speaker, Commonwealth Bank has expressed interest in providing financial services to North and Central Andros, with the first phase involving the implementation of an advanced ATM machine. Final confirmation is expected by next week. From the barriers, cleaning up of all the road verges in Bullocks Harbor, cleaning of Dannenberg Beach, cleaning of the community park, minor repairs to the park bathrooms to make them operable. The proposed plans for the clinic have been approved for the council and sent off for further improvement. The clinic has been a long time standing situation, infrastructure in Great Albuquerque, and we really look forward. I had an opportunity to speak with the member from Tall Pines this morning, and he assured me, and that's a big assurance. He said before his eye closed, I don't know what that means, but before his eye closed, he would ensure that clinic is put in Great Albuquerque. So I got to keep his eye open. Yes, sir. Draft plans for the dock expansion is in progress. School fairs and activity related to the R.N. Gomez 100-year celebration. 100-year. The R.N. Gomez institution has been in place. That's an elite milestone. Local government and police month activities were held, including flag raising and a church service and a walkathon. Upcoming, the Bahamas Powerboat Club will host their annual full throttle poker run in Great Albuquerque on May 3rd, 2025. Madam Speaker, this is an economic boost, an instant economic boost to that community. But I just would like to say to all attendees, safety first and foremost. New fire trailer purchased by the Berry Island Association. Beach houses renovations continue, road works and are ongoing. Madam Speaker, I just want to say something quickly on the fire trailer that I touched earlier. I realized that in small communities, islands like Great Albuquerque, the residents find it much easier in regards to moving those trailers, those water basins that we call them around, that carries about 1,000 gallons, 1,500 gallons of water to move through some of the verges. I understand fire trucks are important and it should be on every family island, but however, for small communities, I think we as a government should really look at those small basins that could easily be hooked up to a back of a truck and get there quickly. So this is just something I must say that worked out pretty good. Pardon? Good. Oh, there South and Central Andros, just for sure that we have some in order. Just make sure some gets in Andros. Good. The solar lighting project throughout the constituency will soon begin. Logistics are currently being finalized and installation is expected within the upcoming weeks. This Philip Brave Davis administration remains focused on its goals, recognizing that there's still significant work ahead, but we are committed to completing what has been started. Madam Speaker, I will now address the mining bill. Madam Speaker, this legal framework will give the minister the necessary powers to implement national mining policies. The minister shall, in consultation with the relevant stakeholders, develop and cause to be implemented a national mining policy which applies to offshore and onshore mining operations to A, protect the marine and terrestrial environment from the adverse impacts of mining. B, to ensure all mine sites are rehabilitated to an acceptable standard. C, provide an avenue for foreign and domestic investment. And D, prevent illegal mining. The national mining policy shall take into consideration the National Environmental Policy Framework referred to in Section 15 of the Environmental Planning and Protection Act 2019. Madam Speaker, this bill established a Department of Mining consisting of a Director of Mining and necessary officers. Additionally, Section 10 prohibits the prospecting of minerals without proper authority. 1, no person shall prospect for minerals or carry on mining operations except under the authority of mineral right granted under this bill. Any person who contravenes subsection 1 commits an offense and is liable on conviction. A, in the case of an individual to a fine of not less than $100,000 or to imprisonment for a period not exceeding 2 years, or to both, or in B, in the case of a body corporate, to a fine of not less than $150,000. Further, a minimal right shall not be granted to an applicant unless the minister is satisfied of the following. A proposal of the applicant would ensure that most efficient and optimal use of the mineral resources concerned. B, the applicant has adequate financial resources and technical and industrial competence and experience to carry on effective mining operations. C, the applicant is able and willing to comply with the conditions on which the mineral rights is granted. D, in the case of mining license, the applicant may plan and proposals for the employment of training of citizens of the Bahamas and procurement of goods, works, and services from within the Bahamas are satisfactory. Madam Speaker, I believe that this bill is important because it sets out and speaks to the areas by the Minister of National Mining zoning according to Section 36, which is necessary, especially for my constituency, particularly in the North Andros area. It sets out specifically, 1, the minister shall, by order, publish in the Gazette established national mining zones specifying the areas where mining operations are permitted and those areas where it is prohibited. Additionally, there must be compliance with laws related to the environment in Section 37. Section 40 calls for a bond to be in place for the rehabilitation of damaged areas. The amount of bond referred in subsection 1 shall be determined by the potential environmental impact that is likely to be caused by the exploration operations, prospecting operations, or mining operations. Where rehabilitation is not carried out in accordance with the requirements of this Act or terms and conditions of the mineral right, the minister, A, order the forfeiture of a bond deposited under subsection. B, authorize any person to enter the mineral right area and perform the work necessary to rehabilitate the mineral right area. Madam Speaker, this is the legal framework will give the minister the ability to hold a registry of all mining activities and the director authority to enter and inspect as deemed necessary. Moreover, Madam Speaker, we are heading in the right direction with the necessary legislation in place to ensure that individuals who wish to engage in this field will be guided by the parameters set out within the laws that will bring about the changes we need in this industry. Additionally, this should discourage individuals from engaging in illegal mining. Madam Speaker, we continue to make bold steps and take on the hard tasks for the people of our country. Sometimes the hard and bold steps are not always the popular ones, but they are the best interests of the majority. I am certain that as a progressive nation, we must ensure that we remain on the cutting edge and take steps in the right direction. With that said, Madam Speaker, I am confident that we are on the right path. May God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. I rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member Asmini.
Madam Speaker.
Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Long Island.
Madam Speaker, thank you very much. I rise on behalf of the wonderful people of Long Island, who I am honored to serve in this place. It has been my greatest honor to represent their interests in this place. Madam Speaker, I'm going to be very brief this afternoon because, like most parents, I have a school run today, and my son is doing after-school classes. Madam Speaker, I want to firstly say to the people of Long Island that on Friday, we'll be having constituency office hours from 10:30 to 4 p.m. So I look forward to seeing them from 10:30 to 4 p.m. on Friday. Also, Madam Speaker, with Easter on the horizon to the kids, we will be having a humongous Easter egg hunt with thousands and thousands of eggs and a lot of games, prizes, and activities at that time. We'll also, during that weekend, have a community grill and chill for the people of Long Island. We'll be making further announcements in the coming days. Madam Speaker, as you know, one of the great concerns that's been communicated to me by my people concerns the morgue and roads. We're looking forward to some major road works happening, particularly on our main thoroughfare, the Kings Highway and the Josie Carroll Highway. And we're looking forward to the installation of this morgue that was sent to Long Island some months ago for the clinic in Deadman's Key. You know, islanders continue to have to transport our sick, our dead, I should say, many miles to the Sims morgue, and that is really unacceptable. Madam Speaker, I rise today to speak on the Mining Bill 2023. This is a far-reaching piece of legislation that, if passed, will define our country's relationship with one of its most powerful endowments, our mineral wealth, terrestrial and marine. So let me be clear, Madam Speaker, I'm not anti-development. In fact, I'm a supporter, a huge supporter of free markets, a capitalist, if you will. However, we support responsible, transparent, people-first resource governance. Madam Speaker, my question is, when you look at a bill like this, how do you reconcile mining with carbon credits and what we're trying to do with that? Madam Speaker, this bill asserts that all rights of ownership and control of minerals are vested in the government. Now that seems pretty straightforward. But who, Madam Speaker, are we speaking of? Is it the minister alone, the people of the Bahamas, the cabinet of the day? Is there further consultation? Would there be further consultation with respect to any decisions being made? You know, we must avoid the concentration of too much discretionary power in the hands of a single individual. Section 11, for instance, gives the minister sweeping authority to enter into agreements related to the grant of a mining license. Where are the checks? Where's the parliamentary or public oversight? Shouldn't major mining concessions require ratification by the House? Madam Speaker, I see a reference to the national mining policy, but I don't see a national mining policy. I mean, I don't know if someone else got a copy of it, but I haven't seen that laid here, and it's referenced in the bill. What is this policy, the national mining policy that's referred to in the bill? Section 42 and 43 mandates that the government is entitled to no less than 25% of the profits from the mining operations and a minimum of 10% equity interest in companies granting mining licenses. Now, obviously, I always think it could be more for the government, for the people. On paper, this sounds like an attempt to be bold, but I ask, what mechanism will the government use to calculate profits? Will these companies be allowed to deduct what they call exploratory costs, consultancy and management fees, which, as we know, are all conveniently inflated? And what if companies post zero profits for a decade while extracting millions in value? We've seen this movie before in extractive economies, and it's called transfer pricing and accounting trickery. Where's the clause guaranteeing that equity participation comes with real influence on a board, or that dividends, not equity, will be protected? Madam Speaker, the introduction of a mining cadastral register and the designation of national mining zones pursuant to Section 36 are noteworthy ideas. However, will this register be accessible to the public? Will Bahamians be able to see who own the mining rights, where and under what terms? What protections are there to ensure that a mining zone is not connected to or politically connected to or connected to any politically connected land holdings. If you look at Section 40, Madam Speaker, as it relates to bond payments, it doesn't specifically say when the bond will be paid. Why is the bond consideration limited? And with regard to that section, why isn't there greater consideration with respect to workers, particularly those workers who might be disenfranchised or would have been let go? Madam Speaker, when you look at Part 7, particularly Clause 64, Section 64, which enables compulsory acquisition of private land for mining purposes, are we now in the business of dispossessing our citizens to accommodate foreign mining interests? How can we pass sweeping powers, this kind of powers, without the crystal clear framework with respect to public consultation, independent valuation, and appeal? What is adequate compensation? It speaks to adequate compensation, but what is adequate compensation when you look at compulsorily acquiring land that Bahamians might be privately sitting on? So this vague reference in the bill to fair and reasonable compensation is simply not enough. We need to define it, we need to standardize it, we need to codify it. Madam Speaker, yes, the bill includes requirements for environmental impact assessments and management plans, but the enforcement capacity of our environmental agencies has historically been weak. That is known. So what guarantees are in place to ensure proper monitoring and enforcement? Has the government budgeted for the technical staff needed to inspect mine sites and assess EIA compliance? Or will this end up as another tick-the-box exercise where glossy environmental reports gather dust while ecosystems die? And what about marine mining? The bill includes continental shelf under land, making offshore extraction a real possibility. But do we have the technical capacity to regulate that? What about our fisheries? What about our coral reefs? What about our water table? Madam Speaker, Section 51 and 52 sound good. Companies must prioritize Bahamian workers and local suppliers. It's all well and good. But again, where's the teeth? Is there a local content threshold for, say, 40%, 60%? Are there sanctions for companies that consistently bypass Bahamian contractors? And how do we stop the common practice of companies incorporating locally, hiring a token Bahamian on the board, and calling themselves Bahamian-owned? Madam Speaker, let's go to Section 56. Section 56 opens the door for for the mining of radioactive materials. Madam Speaker, this is not a minor clause, this is nuclear. Are we seriously prepared for the health, safety, and geopolitical implications of uranium or other radioactive mining? Are we? Where is the public consultation? Where's the radiation control infrastructure, the health protocols, the disaster response framework? Madam Speaker, moving to Section 66. You see the penalties outlined there, but those penalties, Madam Speaker, are underwhelming. A fine of $500,000 for unlawful mining, a fine of $500,000 for unlawful mining. This is chump change to multinational, multi-billion miners. Chump change. We need criminal liability for executive officers, mandatory restitution, and automatic license termination for egregious violations. That's what should be here, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, The people of Long Island, and indeed the entire Bahamas, deserve more than what appears to be rushed legislation and patriotic prose. This is a pivotal bill. It deserves proper scrutiny, wide consultation, and significant amendment. I therefore call on the government to refer this bill to committee for an in-depth review, to perhaps publish, if there are any, all mining concessions and permit applications for public scrutiny, to hold public consultations in any affected communities going forward, especially the Family Islands, and to strengthen the local content, environmental and land rights protections, as I've pointed out earlier in this bill. We must not trade away our birthright for the promise of trickle-down riches. This bill must not become the next chapter in a long story of missed opportunities and exploited land. I stand firmly in defense of our national dignity. Madam Speaker, with those few words, I rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member Asmini.
I waiting for my H2O. Cannot commence without the most important part of the body, H2O.
The chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Killarney.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, before I start, I want to extend condolence to the family of Jeff Williams, who just recently passed away. He's a MCM, a very strong figure within the Free National Movement that made great contribution not only to the Free National Movement but also to this country, in that he served as ambassador, Bahamas ambassador to Haiti, and was trying very much to implement a agricultural program between Haiti and the Bahamas, as is done between Haiti and the United States. So, Madam Speaker, I want to extend especially condolences to him. He's been extremely helpful to me as opposition and as Prime Minister. But I rise today, Madam Speaker, to make my contribution to this bill. It is essential to our democracy that there be proper oversight of the extraction and the use of our natural resources in the Bahamas. A failure to have proper oversight could result in all manner of corruption and secret deals by public officials. We have seen this corruption before, with oligarchs raiding our natural resources to make themselves even richer at the expense of the citizens of our country. The mining bill, Madam Speaker, establishes the Department of Mining, which would be led by a director. And some of the director's responsibility include overseeing exploration, mining, processing, and other operations authorized by a license issued under this bill, enforcing regulations and monitoring operations of mining, processing, and other mining-related activities under this bill to ensure compliance with the license and the provisions of the bill and regulations, and terminating illegal mining and illegal mining-related activities on any lands. Madam Speaker, This does not include cutting down trees and subsequently burning trees for coal mining, which is very significant here in our country. And one has to wonder if any of the recent fires that we've been experiencing, not only in New Providence, but in Family Island, were any related to the cutting down of our trees and burning the wood for the creation of coal. This needs to be stopped and investigated thoroughly. One has to wonder also if it includes the complete destruction and excavation of land, using that for fill, and subsequently destroying lands and creating more ponds. Now, Madam Speaker, those are elements that has to be looked at aggressively. Section 9 addresses ownership and control of minerals, and the bill states that all rights of ownership in and control of minerals in, under, or upon any land in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and its continental shelf are vested in the Treasurer, notwithstanding any right of ownership or otherwise that any person may possess in and to the land on, in, or under which materials are found or situated. Section 10, Madam Speaker, states that no one shall prospect for minerals or mine unless authorized by this bill. And those who contravene this provision on conviction should be subject to a fine or jail time or both. Approvals would also be required for those doing scientific research. Section 17 to 31, Madam Speaker, seek to provide for the duration, renewal, suspension, and cancellation measures and procedures regarding a mineral right. The holders of mineral rights would be subject to various fees to the government. And they would also be subject to profit-sharing arrangements under which the government would be entitled to a minimum of 25% of the profits of the mining operation. Additionally, Madam Speaker, Section 43 states that, 1, a holder of a mining license may be subject to government participation arrangements under the terms of an agreement entered into pursuant to Section 16, under which the government shall be entitled to acquire a minimum 10% equity interest in the holder of a mineral license. And 2, the minister may make regulations to provide for government participation arrangements. Those with mining licenses are also subject to paying royalties to the government. Section 51 of the bill seeks to maximize Bahamian participation in the industry. It states that the holder of a mineral right shall give preference in employment to Bahamian citizens as much as possible. And Section 52 seeks to ensure mining companies purchase goods and services in the Bahamas. Section 53, Madam Speaker, seeks to ensure that a mineral right may include provisions requiring a holder to establish facilities within the Bahamas for the processing and refining of mineral products or other operations that would add value to or transform the mineral products derived from mining areas. These are important objectives that seek to maximize Bahamian participation in this industry. However, It is unclear to me that this legislation has the necessary enforcement mechanisms to ensure that these things are happening. Madam Speaker, we are a well-legislated and legalized society. But we are poor, we are a disaster when it comes to enforcement. Enforcement of our regulations, enforcement of our laws. Enforcement, we are a disaster. As a state, we have had difficulties with investors when it comes to enforcing pro-Bahamian provisions in agreements and legislation. Madam Speaker, the legislation provides for a sweeping regulation of the mining industry. It is complicated legislation that will require a well-staffed and well-funded Department of Mining. The government will have to ensure this happens. If not, the noble ambition of fairly regulating mining will fail. The director of the Department of Mining will need to be a very qualified person who is familiar with the sector. Much work will be required to ensure the department has the necessary components to carry out its mandate. I advise the government, the Davis administration, to ensure the Department of Mining is staffed by qualified people, staffed by qualified people, and not just well-connected PLPs. Madam Speaker, today, as I look around, I am concerned. We are becoming too polarized. We are becoming, Madam Speaker, breeders or incubators of hate. We are beginning to disrespect each other. Wow. The member for Cat Island is our Prime Minister. I did not vote for the member, that's not a secret. I did not vote for the member, but I respect him as our Prime Minister. I respect him. And every Bahamian should respect the position. Now, I will cuss him as much as I want in here and outside, but let someone else do that, and I will be all over their backside. It's a difference. It's a difference. Madam Speaker, we need to reset. We need to reset the button. Yes. When new opportunities emerge in the Bahamas under this PLP administration, PLPs primarily get the benefits. PLPs do not have monopoly on knowledge. The FNMs do not have monopoly on knowledge. COI does not have monopoly on knowledge. But together, we have the monopoly. We have the knowledge. And if this country is to move forward, the polarization, the hatred, and the disrespect has to stop. Madam Speaker, if all the jobs in the Department of Mining go to PLP supporters, the department will not be able to best carry out its function to protect the natural resources of the country. I would recall when I was Prime Minister, individuals would have come to me advising that certain sectors, in particular departments, should be completely dismissed, fired, because they were PLP. They voted against us. I disagreed. They were Bahamians, and they are entitled to live just like we are. And Madam Speaker, I took the firm position as Prime Minister that no, I would not wipe out that particular group just for replacement of others. Subsequently, individuals hated me for that position. But to me, that was a good hate. My passion was clear. That was a good hate. And that type of hate, I think all Bahamians would accept. But the hate of each other just because of their politics, we must stop. We must stop. Let's move this country forward. Madam Speaker, public education will also be important to ensuring that Bahamians understand what this bill entails. There is much misinformation out there when it comes to our natural resources. Bahamians will need to be taught about how the ownership will work with these mining companies and all the taxes, fees, and royalties they will have to pay when it comes to extraction, production, and the sale of our natural resources. The bill, Madam Speaker, seeks to ensure that much revenue will come to the state. However, due to misinformation, many think mining operations occur with no benefits to the state. I support this legislation, and it is important for the Bahamas to develop new industries. Tourism is our #1 industry, followed by the financial services. We need more growth within these industries and the benefit of other industries to ensure we have the robust growth needed to employ our people and develop our country. As it stands, we are growing slowly, and that slow growth is even slowing further. The data the Prime Minister presented during the mid-year budget debate show this. The economy grew by 2.6% in 2023, 1.9% in 2024, and projected to grow 1.7% in 2025. Stopover arrivals were flat last year, equaling the number that came to the Bahamas the previous year. The PLP has failed in significantly boosting stopover visitors. The cruise port that many had objected to is a success under our F&M government. Bahamians who had invested are doing well. The Disney, the port in South Eleuthera, another project under the F&M government, when I was Prime Minister. That facility, again, is doing well. There are now full employment in South Eleuthera, which was suffering for a very long time. Two great success stories: the cruise port, F&M port, New Providence, cruise facility, Royal Caribbean, Disney, in South Eleuthera. Madam Speaker, if we can develop our mining sector, it hopefully can contribute to helping diversifying the Bahamian economy. What we must ensure does not happen via this mining bill is what transpired in the Exuma mooring deal. Let me repeat. What we must ensure does not happen via this mining bill is what transpired in the Exuma mooring deal. The PLP promised in its election blueprint, quote, "We will adhere to the highest level of transparency as it relates to our natural resources." They broke this solemn pledge to the Bahamian people in the Bahamas mooring deal, which they kept secret. They made this pledge under the banner of accountability. Not only did they keep the original deal secret, the Prime Minister, the man who signed the lease, is now refusing to answer questions on the deal. He had told the country to shut up and stop asking him questions. He is, that's my quotation, he is acting like an emperor who does not have to account to the people. Madam Speaker, I will now speak to the Bahamian people. I ask you a simple question, and I'm going to speak in my language that I'm accustomed to. I'm a Baytown boy, so I can speak in Baytown language. If you employ an individual and you, the boss lady or the boss man, ask that individual certain questions, and he or she answers just a few and said he's answering no more, he's finished. Is that not insubordination? Is that not disrespect? Would you keep that employee? Would you keep that individual employed? I ask you, in Dunmore Street, in Hospital Lane, where I'm from, would you keep that individual employed, or would you dismiss them? Complete insubordination, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Fort Howard.
The honourable member for Killarney could be as dramatic as he wishes. The Prime Minister has not made any such statement. It is unparliamentary. It is a negative imputation, which the rules, it's a negative imputation. Read the rules. Please, please, please.
Out of the description
You
there, you get it.
What this honourable member is putting in the mouth of the Prime Minister, whether the tune or the words are not the words of the Prime Minister. And the honourable member, as a former Prime Minister, as a former Prime Minister, as a former Prime Minister, ought to do the honourable thing.
Don't waste your time.
Do the honourable thing, honourable member.
Thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I did the honourable thing. I spoke in the language the Bahamian people understand. I am not speaking in the eloquency that you bring in here today. But Madam Speaker, I will table here, listen, listen, I know you, don't go down that road. You and I, Madam Speaker, I do apologize, but sometimes the member for Fort Charlotte hit the wrong side. But Madam Speaker, at the end, I will table an article from the Tribune. PM, no more talk on mooring issue. I will table, Madam Speaker. But Madam Speaker, in this latest PLP scandal, a private company was given a seabed lease over thousands of acres to install moorings in our most pristine seafloor. The government had to quickly cancel and deal with the company because of several alarming, well, I don't want to say irregularities. Let me speak to Baytown. Because of several alarming mess-ups. The company had not received the required legal permits, yet it was doing physical works in the exhumas. Additionally, the Deputy Director of Communications in the Office of the Prime Minister signed the lease for the deal as a witness of Bahamas Mooring. Her husband is the president of Bahamas Mooring. I once again call for the Prime Minister to dismiss the Deputy Director of Communications. Further, what are the results of promised investigations on this matter? What are the results of promised investigations of this matter? Did the Prime Minister tell an untruth when he promised an investigation? Did he go back on his word to the Bahamian people? The government had to quickly engage in damage control and stop the secretive deal when it blew up in their faces. Bahamians, including me, I'm a Bahamian, 150%. Bahamians were outraged that rights to their natural resource were being sold off to private interests who were going to benefit by over $1 billion over the life of the deal. The FNM, Madam Speaker, would have used, I must say, when we were in government, we had looked at that, and we were prepared to establish an authority so as all the funds can be governed or controlled by the government, and consider PPP also. We had reviewed the Australian legislation. We had reviewed, I think, the Bermuda legislation, and the monies would have stayed within the various family islands so as to advance that grouping. The over $1 billion would have gone to the Bahamian people, not to the few oligarchs, whomever they may be. The Prime Minister signed a deal that would primarily benefit a few PLPs. This is the vast difference between the FNM and the all for me baby PLP. This mining bill must not be used in this manner. The PLP must not abuse the national resources of the country to give deals to its supporters, creating oligarchs, while the vast majority of Bahamian people lose out. I do, but I support also the Bahamian people. I just point out what happened. Make sure you don't run out my time, you're slick. You're a very intelligent boy, young man. I have the greatest respect for you, Fort Charlotte. You were a genius when we were at SAC, and that has not changed. Genius. The PLP must not abuse the national resources of the country to give deals to its supporters, creating oligarchs, while the vast majority of Bahamian people lose out. There remain many questions about what happened in Exuma and who all was involved with it. We must not repeat this kind of lack of transparency when it comes to mining. The mining bill, Madam Speaker, must come with full disclosure and complete transparency. The people should always know who the players are when deals are made surrounding our natural resources. The governing party should try to change its grabalicious ways and learn to disclose all these deals and no-bid contracts. My question about Exuma still have not been answered. Again, the Prime Minister instead has said he has nothing more to say on the issue. Bahamas, it's written. Don't listen to Fort Charlotte, it's written. That is unacceptable. That is unacceptable. It's insubordinate. Again, I remind the country that the PLP said in its blueprint, under the banner of accountability, quote, "We will adhere to the highest level of transparency as it relates to our natural resources, end quote. Live up to your promise and answer the questions on the natural resources of the seabed in Exuma. Live up to the promises. Another matter that remains pending from Exuma is that there clearly was a conflict of interest with the Prime Minister's Deputy Communications Director, serving on the one hand as a government official and on the other hand as an agent for the mooring group. As a result of her actions and this conflict of interest, I have called on her to do the honorable thing and resign as Deputy Director of Communications. In actuality, the Prime Minister should have demanded her resignation immediately. There's been no formal announcements that she has resigned. Again, she must resign. Does the Prime Minister condone conflicts of interest with senior officials in his office when it comes to big contracts with the people's natural resources? Are conflicts of interest now condoned in the Prime Minister's Code of Ethics? Madam Speaker, the PLP conduct with the Exuma moorings deal scares us on the opposite side. The PLP has behaved similarly with BPL privatization, the Pike Bahamas Grid deal. There is a pattern with the governing party in which they prefer deals that are not transparent and amount to giveaways to party insiders. Instead of opening up the BPL deal to a wide range of common shareholders, the PLP set the bar at $50,000 to ensure only the big boys could get in on the deal. It is our fear that these same PLP oligarchs have their eyes on our various natural resources via this mining bill. The Prime Minister must change his ways. The oligarchs have already gotten enough this term. The PLP has allotted $250 million, $250 million to consultants. That does not include how much have gone to PLP contractors directly in deals. Prime Minister, you must have mercy. Have mercy. I'm sure you remember the movie. Have mercy. Do not abuse the mining bill, as has been the practice of the PLP. Select independent investors in our mining sector who have a record in the sector. Let there be fair and open bidding. Do not give away the natural resources of the country to PLP insiders. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I haven't reached finish yet. Do I have 2 or 3 minutes? Madam Speaker, I thank you again, and note that Killarney supports the intent of this bill, of this legislation, while insisting that PLP should not abuse the legislation. A question I will be asking. The Honorable, I'll ask this at the end. No. So it'll go on. The Honorable Prime Minister was quoted in a local daily as saying, quote, "The Bahamas mooring matter has been stopped and it's canceled. That's the end of that," end quote. Would the Honorable Prime Minister agree with me that his words send a terrible message and signifies that he believes that he and members of his staff are above the law and should not be held accountable by the Bahamian people? Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Killarney supports the intent, and I'm very careful intent of the bill.
Thank you, Honorable Member. As many, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Elizabeth.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise on behalf of the great people of Elizabeth constituency to contribute on the debate in the Mining Bill 2025. This bill, Madam Speaker, is long overdue and represents a significant step in the right direction for our nation. The mining industry is a major economic driver contributing significantly to the GDP of many countries. It provides jobs to millions of people worldwide, from mining engineers to laborers, thereby supporting many communities. In developing nations like the Bahamas, Madam Speaker, mining can be a catalyst for economic growth, attracting investments and providing the means for infrastructure development. As we seek to diversify our economy, we must focus beyond the traditional industries and sectors, such as tourism and banking, and fully support other industries such as mining, agriculture, fisheries, and the orange economy. And so, Madam Speaker, from the onset, I wish to state that I fully support this bill. Madam Speaker, by supporting the Mining Bill 2025, I am supporting the establishment of a robust legislative and regulatory regime to govern mineral prospecting and mining. Through this bill, we are clearly providing a modern framework for the mining sector that is comparable to other jurisdictions and will ultimately protect the interests of the Bahamian people. It is important to note, Madam Speaker, that the Mining Bill 2025 will be applicable to the entire Bahamas, including our Family Islands and Keys. Madam Speaker, over the last few years, the Bahamian public has grown more interested in mineral prospecting and mining. This interest, Madam Speaker, was created by mining-related developments and subsequently fed by tremendous conversations in the public domain. I believe that most of the members of this House would recall significant public discussions about aragonite and other natural resources. Those discussions, Madam Speaker, in many ways have been informative and healthy for our country. However, in some respects, persons with political aspirations have used the public dialogue to advance agendas that are based on erroneous and inaccurate information. At one point, Madam Speaker, we heard of political promises of serious personal financial gains for every Bahamian. Such rhetoric, Madam Speaker, has been used to create false hope and a misunderstanding of the mining industry. Our intent through this bill is to enhance regulations governing the mining sector and protect the rights of all Bahamians. In our blueprint for change, we committed that we would work to ensure that the natural resources of the Bahamas would benefit our people. Among the commitments made were the establishment of the Ministry of Natural Resources and the Environment, which we fulfilled, and the establishment of a mining authority, like the structure of NAD, Airport Authority, for all projects involving our natural resources harvesting. Once passed, Madam Speaker, the Mining Bill 2025 would not only represent the fulfillment of another pledge made in the blueprint, but also, more importantly, bring about a shift in how we view the mining industry and harness its potential to grow our economy. The Mining Bill is a transformative piece of legislation, and as with similar legislations, Madam Speaker, we should evaluate the bill based on its provisions to improve oversight of the sector, encourage national economic growth, and safeguard the environment. It is from these perspectives, Madam Speaker, that I will evaluate the Mining Bill 2025. Madam Speaker, there are several ways in which the Mining Bill will improve oversight of the sector. In Part 2 of this bill, provisions have been outlined for the implementation of a national mining policy with applicability to offshore and onshore operations and the establishment of a Department of Mining to be led by a Director of Mining. The responsibilities of the Director of Mining will include, among others, the overseeing of exploration, mining, processing, and other operations authorized by the grant of a mineral right under the bill. the right to conduct inspections on surface or underground works of any mineral right, the right to conduct annual audits on holders of mineral rights, and the ability to terminate illegal mining and illegal mining-related activities on any land. It is also worth mentioning, Madam Speaker, the bill clearly outlines that no person shall prospect for minerals or carry on mining operations except under the authority of a mineral right granted under the Act. As a very strong deterrent, Madam Speaker, penalties are outlined for prospecting for minerals without authority. In the case of an individual, a fine of not less than $100,000 or imprisonment for a period of not exceeding 2 years is applicable. In the case of a body corporate, a fine of not less than $150,000 is applicable. Madam Speaker, with respect to the second evaluation criteria, the encouragement of national economic growth, the bill achieves this goal. Under Part 3, Article 9, the Mining Bill 2025 clearly outlines that all rights of ownership in and control of minerals in, under, or upon any land in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and its continental shelf are vested in the Treasurer, notwithstanding any right of ownership or otherwise that any person may possess in and to the land on, in, or under which minerals are found or situated. To be clear, Madam Speaker, Article 9 also includes the seabed around our islands. Now, Madam Speaker, several studies have indicated that there are millions of tons of aragonite scattered throughout the seabed of the Bahamas. The carbonate mineral, which is used to produce cement, glass containers, auto glass, soil acid, and other products, can be mined at great extent to support the growth of our country if the process is in full compliance with this bill. Under financial obligations of this mining bill, provisions outline that the government of the Bahamas is entitled to 25% of the profits of mining operations, and that any mining license may be subject to government participation. Additionally, the government is entitled to a royalty in respect of minerals produced in the mining area. The holder of a mineral right shall also pay an annual surface rental fee. Madam Speaker, in my opinion, the provisions that I have highlighted will protect the economic benefits of mining in the Bahamas for the Bahamian people. Through this bill, we are balancing our need for revenue while preserving our right of ownership. The bill does not sell out our country's resources for a bowl of porridge. In our quest to expand mining, Madam Speaker, our regional neighbor and CARICOM counterpart, Jamaica, stands as an example. We all know that Jamaica is famous for the mining of bauxite. Bauxite is a rock which is the main source of aluminum. In 2023, the Jamaican government earned millions of dollars from bauxite mining due to an increase in production by more than 35%, with over 2 million tons exported primarily to the United States. A good portion of the revenue earned from bauxite mining was specifically allocated for infrastructure development projects in Jamaica and scholarships in education for Jamaican students and youths. Madam Speaker, I reference Jamaica's role and practices as a leading bauxite exporter because I believe it reflects the approach that we should follow in respect to mining in the Bahamas. In short, when we use the economic benefits of mining to directly invest in our communities, especially our family islands, we strengthen the fabric of our nation. Madam Speaker, the third and final evaluation criteria, safeguarding the environment, is very important. The Mining Bill 2025 makes clear that the holder of a mineral right must preserve the natural environment of the Bahamas, minimize and mitigate any environmental impact to surrounding areas, and follow the Environmental Planning and Protection Act. Madam Speaker, the environment-related provisions of the bill ensures that we do not damage our ecosystem and that we pursue national development in a responsible and sustainable manner. The mining bill is well-crafted, Madam Speaker, and lays a strong foundation for the mining industry. I believe that as Minister responsible for energy, that is also worth mentioning that the mining sector has been key to the growth of renewable energy, as green technology is heavily reliant on certain metals and minerals. For example, aluminum and copper are used to produce PV panels, and wind turbines are made from steel, a product of iron. Copper is also essential to all power generation infrastructure, as well as electric vehicle technology. In our quest to expand the use of renewable energy, I believe we must be mindful of the link between mining and energy, with a view to maximizing the positive benefits of the two fields for our country, particularly as we embarked on a major national energy transformation. Madam Speaker, in the coming days and weeks, I'll have more to share on our further transformation of the energy sector. During the commissioning ceremony of the dual fuel generators, I understand the skepticism around energy plans, which is due to our past actions over several administrations having not yielded the intended results in a sustainable and lasting manner. But the Davis administration is working, Madam Speaker. Our energy transformation, and by extension, the development of our nation, is a journey, and we are dedicated to achieving positive and meaningful, lasting results. We fully understand what the promise of a brighter future, energy future, would mean for our communities. For households, that's lower power bills could result in the families saving more. For college, for their children, and making principal payments on their mortgages to become debt-free. For large businesses, it could result in inventory expansion and the hiring of additional staff. And for small and medium-sized businesses, it could result in improved cash flows and profits. These are the aspirations that electrifies our work, and we hope to bring about. And so, Madam Speaker, the Member of Parliament for Elizabeth, based on provisions outlined to provide robust oversight, support economic growth, and protect the environment, I support the Mining Bill 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Marco City.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I want to thank Almighty God for this opportunity to once again rise in this place to amplify the voice of the people of Marco City, and to once again express gratitude to them for reposing their confidence in me over these 2 terms. Madam Speaker, I would like to extend condolences to the family of our dear brother, Michael Russell, hard-working warrior in the field, to the iconic Bahamian artist, to his family, to Elon Moxie's family, and to say how much we loved him and appreciated his contribution to the national development of this country as an incredible storyteller, someone who not merely entertained but educated us on important issues. And to our brother, former Ambassador Jeff Williams, a sports icon in the country who has carefully documented so many historic events in our country's history, who was a social commentator on a number of issues that affect everyday Bahamians. He was somebody who provided advice to our leadership team on matters related to Haiti and, by extension, other countries in the region. He will be tremendously missed. In Grand Bahama, Madam Speaker, there's a gentleman who, each time his name is called, persons have stories of his tremendous contribution to our organization, but more importantly, he celebrated on both sides of the aisle his contribution to Grand Bahama and the wider Bahamas. And we pay tribute to Wilkie John Arlington Cochise Hannah, who's left us having served his country with distinction. And so I want to say to his family how much we thank you for lending him to us. We were part of both a memorial service and the funeral service, the homegoing service for our MCM Alpheus Ramsey, who played a pivotal role in so many areas in the Bahamas. He's best known by most Bahamians for his role with the Bahamas National Pride Program and organizing the Best Yard competition, but he's also known in fraternal organizations, in the church community, and as a man with a close-knit family, and to Adrian and to all of the children and to his dear wife, we wish to say how much we will miss him. I had the misfortune, Madam Deputy, of attending the funeral of a young, dynamic Bahamian who was doing exceptionally well in family life, in his business, a model father on so many levels. Theophilus Pelicanos was somebody who inspired others, his quiet demeanor, but he lived an impactful life. And so to Cassietta, McIntosh, Pelicanos, I want to once again say condolences. And to all of the others, families who mourn, including the families of Lewis Clark from Pioneers Loop and Angela Butterfield, Barbara Charles, Justina Davis McGregor. I wish to extend condolences. And finally, Madam Speaker, some days in this politics, you know, I miss the creative arts and I miss HR consulting. But Madam Speaker, one of the persons who kept inspiring me even though we no longer had time to collaborate on theatrical productions was Gia Pierre. Gia Pierre, Madam Speaker, somebody who many of us in this place took the time to go and see her most recent production that the government still has an opportunity to continue to support as it can travel throughout all of the schools, should go to all of the islands. Gia Pierre is one of the most prolific playwrights, certainly in recent times, clearly the most prolific playwright that we have in the country. She, a dynamic poet and storyteller. She hails from Grand Bahama, very humble spirit. She made a contribution to the Ministry of Health. She worked as an education officer in many ways because she conducted seminars, organized modules, but her passion was the creative arts. Her productions have not only traveled throughout the Bahamas, but also overseas. All of us have been stunned at the sudden passing of Gia Pierre. And that is precisely why there are so many tributes on Facebook going out to her. She impacted lives. She made you laugh, she made you cry, she made you think about us as a people and the potential of the Bahamas. That's what writers do. That's what us creatives do, Madam Speaker. And she was among the best this country has produced. And so, Gia, we will miss you, we love you, and to her immediate and extended family, I wish to once again extend condolences and say how much we miss her. And Laureate, we miss Miss Pearl, one of the outstanding residents of Fox Hill, who passed recently and will be eulogized this coming Saturday. Madam Speaker, this morning, one of our colleagues made a determination to join another political organization. I just wish to say thank you to the Honorable Iram Lewis for the contribution you've made to the Free National Movement over a number of years, and to say to you and to your family that we wish you the best in your endeavors. The Free National Movement as an organization has released a statement, Madam Speaker, that speaks more fully to the matter. But I'm here to litigate the matters that concern the Bahamian people. And so, Madam Speaker, I turn my attention to the mining bill, and to say from the outset, despite the number of concerns we have with the bill that has been expressed by my colleagues, we do, Madam Speaker, in principle, support the bill, but will put on the public record the concerns that we have relative to the bill. And when we become the government in 2025 or in 2026, we understand it's 2025, we will in fact make the necessary amendments to this bill. Madam Speaker, while the conversation in this bill is about a Department of Mining, it is our view, for reasons stated earlier, that there should really be an authority made up of members of the private sector, stakeholders, and we have identified some of those vocations and sectors from which they should hail, as well as members of the government. There are some in public life who are responsible for the passage of legislation and implementation of policy who cannot resist interfering with the ordinary course of business. The Progressive Liberal Party has that affliction far more than any other political organization in this country. And this particular version of the PLP is, in fact, the most dangerous one I have seen thus far. Madam Speaker, it is in our collective interest that we create a partition as best possible between the hands of the Progressive Liberal Party and the tangible and intangible resources of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Because this administration has very little difficulty divvying up, making available to selected groups the assets of this country under terms that many times we do not know, and in cases where we are aware, we take issue with those terms. We do not believe that they construct the best arrangements that are in the interests of the Bahamian people. I've said before, and we've said it in different ways, our job is to protect the interests of the vast majority of Bahamians and to make sure wherever our assets are being used, tangible or intangible, that the maximum benefits from those assets, that they go to the Bahamian people. That when we construct arrangements, as we did with the cruise port, that provisions are made for ordinary Bahamians to buy shares and to become a part of the shareholder society. We did it with Commonwealth Brewery. We have a tradition of supporting public offerings at a price point that Bahamians can buy in, not at a price point where it is prohibitive for the average Bahamian to buy in, and only the wealthy out there and in here can buy shares in these corporations. And so, Madam Speaker, this is precisely why we've called on the Prime Minister to strengthen, not only strengthen the Sovereign Wealth Fund, but to ensure that wherever Bahamian assets are being used, that the revenue from those assets would go into a sovereign wealth fund, Madam Speaker. Because there are some out there who have this misguided notion that there are millions, possibly billions, that are just located in a fund. And even though it's meant to be a criticism of persons in Parliament, the truth is it should be an embarrassment, especially to the government, that they have not deposited, to the best of our knowledge, anything in that fund. But yet they are dispensing with, they are making available our assets to others. Madam Speaker, we made this exact point when we talked about the mooring deal. that at least two particular places the revenue from the moorings deal should go. One, it should go for family island development, and we should ensure that people in local communities, whenever their pristine environment is being used, whenever the waters of the Bahamas is being used, that we should not permit revenue that we could generate, particularly under such arrangement as the mooring, to go in the consolidated fund, but we should segregate. We should ring fence the fund to go to particular initiatives, and to do that through the Sovereign Wealth Fund would be, Madam Speaker, the best way for us to sustain Family Island, to also sustain particular initiatives in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that we agree upon that would be funded by the Sovereign Wealth Fund. So two things. One, Family Island development should benefit from a number of our natural assets. In the case of the mooring deal, that was one of the propositions that we put forth that we will implement when we come to government. And then secondly, we should put funds in the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Madam Speaker, the last time I was in this House, I again raised this issue of the mooring because, Madam Speaker, that deal is such an egregious deal. The other side love to talk about Oban. I find it quite incredible that some would even have the ability to fix their mouth to raise that issue against the backdrop of this issue, where 4,600 plus acres was being pretty much given away to a select group of persons with very close and intimate ties in the office of the Prime Minister, and no less than the Prime Minister placed his seal of approval on it, and then reversed it without giving us a fulsome explanation as to what happened to him on that day when he signed. Was he under duress? Did he need to put up the help sign so somebody could come and rescue him, Madam Speaker? And so, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister, but you all funded them one time before, so you should, but that was before your time, I guess. You didn't contribute to that one. So the point is, Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister himself signed. He has a duty of care, Madam Speaker, to explain to the public what motivated him, and then what changed that caused him to cancel it. Madam Speaker, we understand there's another contract that was canceled recently. We talked about it here in the House, but was then awarded again in another company for the same person through a relative. But we're going to come back to that, Madam Speaker. I just want to just tidy up the document a little bit before we come and discuss that further. Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has lots of investigations that he has promised to lay the results in the House of Assembly. To date, he has failed to do so, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, this bill raises a number of important issues. One is, Madam Speaker, if we are serious about greater participation of ordinary, talented Bahamians, it is important that we establish this authority. If we wish, Madam Speaker, to reduce the overwhelming influence, Madam Speaker, throughout that bill that the minister has, we need, again, Madam Speaker, to form an authority, not a department. Now, Madam Speaker, the present minister with responsibility for this, I must say, Madam Speaker, we trust him. We trust that he would do the right thing. But let me say, Madam Speaker, most times we know he's not consulted. Madam Speaker, that minister we have hardly ever seen on any of the major trips dealing with any of the major initiatives related to that particular ministry, because it's been co-opted by other ministries and ministers sanctioned by the Prime Minister. And that is what concerns us. That is what concerns us, Madam Speaker, that even a well-intentioned piece of legislation can be circumvented, misused, and power could be abused because of those who would interfere or even fail to allocate the required resources to give any protective mechanisms in it any teeth. Madam Speaker, right now, we live in Grand Bahama. The member for East Grand Bahama, Madam Speaker, and myself, and Madam Speaker, the ministry, in fact, you are primed to do a swap right now. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker. In Grand Bahama, and we may have gotten this wrong, but we have seen trending recently, Madam Speaker, that the ministry that has carriage even for this bill, despite the efforts of the minister, was facing eviction from a building, or was looking for a home, Madam Speaker. No less than the Minister of Finance is responsible for allocating the money and ensuring that that ministry does not have, the workers does not have any anxiety over where they will set up their business. So, Madam Speaker, for all kinds of reasons. Yes.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Golden Isles.
I just would like, Madam Speaker, records to reflect that he referred to something that's been circulating on social media, that no eviction occurred. There's no eviction that occurred. So I would like for him to retract that statement. I'm aware of what's, all of us are aware of what's being circulated on social media, but I'd like to make it clear that we were not, our department was not evicted from the building.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, I didn't say they were, I said they faced an eviction notice, but let me phrase it this way, Madam Speaker, and then I would gladly sit so the minister can address it. The Ministry of the Environment faces the unfortunate situation where their contract has not been renewed in the Teachers Credit Union building, and they have not found, or if they have found a home, I know up to a couple days ago, they had not executed a new contract. And there has been anxiety among staff members in terms of what will happen. And this is not new for the government. The government, when it doesn't pay its bill or make timely decisions, these things happen. So I think it's fair to say that there is a problem with accommodations for the Ministry for the Environment, the ministry that presides over this bill. Is that a reasonable, accurate depiction?
Yes.
That, of course, just to speak specifically, okay, again, no eviction, again, the employees, the staff, their accommodations, fine, and we'll speak to that in detail at a later date, I assure you.
Thank you, honourable member.
Madam Speaker, I know the member to be an honourable man, and so I will communicate what the minister has said to those constituents that have raised this as a concern about their place of work, that they are and will be fine. And I'm grateful for the minister for giving that reassurance to the staff member. And it is my hope that the new contract, wherever it is in Grand Bahama, would be signed in a timely fashion, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to just highlight just a few parts of the bill, Madam Speaker, but would like to make several recommendations. Madam Speaker, there are a number of assets, tangible, I said, and intangible, where revenue from those assets ought to go into the consolidated fund. I just want to read a few of them into the record, Madam Speaker. But certainly one of them is Crown land, Madam Speaker. I heard the member for Exuma speaking about yet another controversy that they're embroiled in online. But what struck me was, and I was glad he gave clarification on the Crown land component. Madam Speaker, when we were in government, there was one thing that we contemplated in this administration is pretty much contemplating the same thing. Unfortunately, we were kicked out of office before being able to execute it. Madam Speaker, there's something called a land REIT, sort of, taking various either buildings or real estate and putting it in a trust that you can use, Madam Speaker, in order to raise capital for a number of productive purposes. Madam Speaker, it is a good formula, whether it's virgin land or whether or not it's land with government buildings. One of the things we would certainly explore, Madam Speaker, when we come to government is how do we maintain the buildings that we presently have as a government, because we have a bad record in building maintenance, Madam Speaker. How do you maintain the existing offices, properly refurbish them when required, rent out the additional spaces, Madam Speaker, so that the government can earn revenue? The big question becomes, if one can set up that kind of arrangement, and under our former Prime Minister Minnis, one of the initiatives that was being contemplated, I believe the name was Terra Firma. And the idea basically was to bundle a number of offices, raise the requisite resources, have private sector participation on the board and the administration of this land REIT, so that we are able to generate funds. I know Bahamians sometimes have this emotional attachment to buildings that are falling apart, but I believe, Madam Speaker, if we have private sector involvement along with public officials who would oversee what is happening on these boards, where you have Crown land as well as buildings in a common trust to raise money, we would do better, Madam Speaker, in being able to maintain buildings, raise revenue, and take that revenue, Madam Speaker, this is where I'm going with this, take that revenue and put a portion of that in our sovereign wealth fund. Why? Because the land, the assets, are a part, Madam Speaker, of our patrimony, and there's something that happens with policymakers when that money is sitting in that consolidated fund. It may end up being misused, Madam Speaker, for extra ceremonies, cocktail parties, $58 million trips, Madam Speaker, a whole host of things that do not transform the lives of our Bahamian people. And so, Madam Speaker, one of the things we intend to do is to carefully, for the public, identify all of the various tangible and intangible assets, whether it's black coral or blue holes or calcite or pine forest or the limestone and the aggregates, whether it's the coral reef or the power of the seawater or mahogany or gypsum, Madam Speaker, or the mangroves, Madam Speaker, or the orchids, orchards, medicinal plants, the natural gas. There are literally, Madam Speaker, dozens and dozens of natural resources, the airspace, and intangible assets that we have in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas that we have not carefully documented, monetized, and put a valuation on, and then ensure that the revenue we earn from it is segregated in a way that no politician can willy-nilly misuse those resources, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there are Bahamians who have patents for the conversion of aggregate into a host of other products, Madam Speaker, but do not see a pathway in the Bahamas to have the value added to those, the aggregate and other natural resources, so that we can not only earn money from export of it, but we could earn money from the transformation of the raw material. Madam Speaker, those who are from Michael, like our brother McIntosh, Brother McIntosh, we look forward to working with you to assist our candidate in Michael next time. So we'll reach out to you. We believe we can do some wonderful things for the people of Michael. But in Michael, Madam Speaker, in Michael, Madam Speaker, we have the Cascarilla, Madam Speaker, and for years, all we were doing, Madam Speaker, is we were taking the raw material and exporting the raw material. And when I was Minister of Agriculture, Madam Speaker, one of the things we did and the member for Southern Shores inherited the project that we were running, Madam Speaker, where we sought to build a refinery to extract the oil, to process the oil. It does not make sense at the end of the day, Madam Speaker, for us to continue to harvest the bark, harvest the raw material, export it to other countries, when we have the capacity to refine the product and add value to create a variety of products from it and make money locally. That's one of several initiatives, Madam Speaker, that we are able to execute. And we made significant progress on it. We got international funding to go along with the funding we were provided. I think some $400,000. We petitioned the Jeff Fund, one of the global environmental funds, to assist us in this regard. And it was a project that I believe was also being managed by Southern Shores until the Davis administration unfortunately stripped him of his responsibilities. But my brother, we are prepared to work with you. I just want to let you know that we are prepared to work with you, and we do have a vacancy, so we could have a conversation a little later. Madam Speaker, we feel badly that they had moved you, because I thought you could do some excellent work in BAIC, my brother. But these things happen, unfortunately, in politics. And so, Madam Speaker, as we discuss this bill, we understand the value of it in terms of protecting our natural resources, making sure, Madam Speaker, making sure that Bahamian ownership is paramount and front and center in any arrangement that we make, Madam Speaker. It is important that the formula that we set up in terms of the management of the minerals that are in the ground are not just terrestrial minerals, not just on land, but on the seabed, except in our marine protected areas, Madam Speaker. The Bahamians dominate those particular contracts, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in Grand Bahama, Bahamians have particular concerns about mining that we intend to address candidly, Madam Speaker. There is a fear that mining has contributed to damages to a number of homes, Madam Speaker. And so one of the things we will not make a mistake with, Madam Speaker, is we believe that residents ought to be educated about the facts concerning mining, particularly the mechanism used, blasting, so that they can know definitively, clearly, unmistakably, whether or not they're at risk. Madam Speaker, there are provisions in the law that talk about, to some extent, the distance that mining operations would be located at in relation to homes or in relation to businesses. But, Madam Speaker, it is not clearly defined, and we believe that we have to bring clear focus to what are the distances we will observe relative to homes, relative to businesses, Madam Speaker. We should also, Madam Speaker, clearly define, Madam Speaker, the rates, the royalties that we as a country will be getting. We believe that different minerals ought to attract a different percentage in terms of the royalty, and we should look mineral by mineral at what is the arrangement between the government, and not the consolidated fund, but a segregated fund, the sovereign wealth fund. We should look very carefully, Madam Speaker, at how we deposit these revenues. So, Madam Speaker, just before I take my seat, I want to make a broad statement, Madam Speaker, relative to not just the mining bill, but all of the bills that this government will bring in the last remaining months that they would be in office that deal with the issue of access benefit sharing. It is important that this government and future governments should be guided by that simple principle, that if you are going to utilize Bahamian resources, there should consistently, by default, be a formula where access benefit sharing is a part of it. In other words, that those who do the investigation, that is, conduct the studies, those who determine what the monetary benefit could be, whether they are foreign or if they are, whether they're foreign or Bahamian, and if they're foreign, they should always have a minority stake, whether it's shipwrecking, Madam Speaker, or whether it's extracting some property out of coral, they should have a minority stake, but there should always be a formula where the Bahamian people benefit. One, through the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and two, as shareholders in any enterprise that is set up. That is the formula. So if someone asks you in future, Madam Speaker, when you go into Bamboo Town, you know, what is it that we stand for as it relates to this issue? You could say, of course, the F&M is worth supporting because they believe that at the end of the day, any resources that we are using, a portion of those monies should go to the Sovereign Wealth Fund, and a portion should go to Bahamians through share offering potential. And then thirdly, Madam Speaker, that ultimately Bahamians should be the principal owners. And so with those few remarks, Marco City support this bill, and we promise in the not too distant future, I'm hearing, Madam Speaker, somewhere maybe around July or August, we'll be in a position to bring the necessary amendments.
Thank you, Honorable Member Asmani. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Fort Charlotte.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to express my gratitude for the confidence reposed in me on 3 occasions, on 3 non-consecutive terms, to be the voice for the people in Fort Charlotte. And I know a number of family members, a number of families in Fort Charlotte, the family of Karen Mackey Pinder of Charlotte Ridge, the family of Sheena Monique Darling of Monson Village, Zaria Benaby of Nassau Street, the family of Jaden Henfield, also of Monson Village, Mr. Philip Lowe, well-known resident from Providence Avenue, and we know his daughter Stacy, who works in the office of the spouse. Also, Elon Moxie, a friend and brother, a cultural hero who last year performed for us in one of the events that we sponsored in Fort Charlotte, who really celebrated the big yard, the island that I one day hope will become the capital of this country. It has the land and the assets and resources for us, as Brazil did, as Nigeria did, to have a capital for the 22nd century of our Commonwealth. Also, the Honorable Excellency Jeffrey Williams. I am privileged to be the godfather of his daughter, Cherise, and I wish to extend condolences to the Williams family and to Henry Hank Williams, who was a professional baseball player. Hank, I want to just let you know, brother, that we love you. He had a stroke, and he played so courageously on the baseball field. In the field of life, he is fighting to get back, and, you know, I just want to let him know that Fort Charlotte is with him. Madam Speaker, today, as the Honorable Member for Elizabeth reminded us, this is a day of delivery. In our blueprint for change, we promised that we would break a cycle that have existed from colonial days, where the resources, the mineral resources of our country were not always as transparent. The management was not always as transparent. And it is therefore not surprising, Madam Speaker, that it is unanimous. You wouldn't appreciate it from the rhetoric and the personal assaults that went on today.
Yeah, man.
But everyone who has spoken recognize that this is a fundamental shift in the public policy of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And it comes, Madam Speaker, at a very critical time in the global arena, because there is a scramble for mineral resources, for rare earth, in order to fuel this new industrial drive with respect to renewables. And therefore, Madam Speaker, the Seabed Authority, which administers the rules and convention of the law of the sea in Jamaica, a number of contracts have already been given out to countries because it is a recognition that the next frontier of mining is the deep seabed. That is for copper, magnesium, cobalt, nickel. All of these minerals which are in demand, the next frontier is the seabed. And therefore, this ought to have been done years, decades ago. But we are where we are. And we don't do it, Madam Speaker, because it's easy. We do it as a nationalist party because this is what in 1953 we committed to doing: preserving, protecting, securing the resources of this country for the benefit of the Bahamian people.
Yes.
And you know, Madam Speaker, it is always very challenging because with such a small population, people look at us everywhere I go in the world to represent the Bahamas. They want to know how we do it, Madam Speaker. With 400,000 people, how do we manage 30 airports?
Wow.
How do we manage, Madam Speaker, 15 airports which are international? Flights coming in from different parts of the world. How do we manage and maintain, Madam Speaker, 40 bridges, which are essential? I wouldn't talk about Andros, because you couldn't get to work if you work at the OTEC base if you don't cross a bridge. How do we, Madam Speaker, with hundreds of docks, which are necessary for daily life and supplies the lifeblood of our family islands? How do we manage this infrastructure of seawalls to keep this rising tide from coming into our communities and into our homes and into our business? And Madam Speaker, one of the areas that we have taken this bold move today to manage is the mineral resources of our country.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, when it comes to the mineral resources of our country, we represent a classic case of underdevelopment. We are consuming, even though we have the resources now, whether it's the cascarilla bark, whether it's the sand,
Yep.
whether it's the aragonite, whether it's the salt. Madam Speaker, we have them,
Yes, we do.
but we don't directly consume them. We consume them when they are manufactured and the value added to them by somebody else. And then we go to the store and then we buy the processed salt. We go to the store and then we buy the fertilizer right from our aragonite. We buy the glass and put in our house and drink our wine and our water. Right?
Yes.
Made right from the aragonite. We go to the store and we buy the cream,
Yes.
the cosmetics
Yep.
to beautify ourselves. And it come, Madam Speaker, right from the aragonite. Madam Speaker, we go to Jamaica. We go to Austria. We go to Canada. And we import the aggregate to build our roads, Madam Speaker, and the limestone and the sand, the aragonite that goes to Georgia and Florida is used to build the road. Madam Speaker, this is what we're talking about. How do we, and then when we look at what we get from it, we know the value. I mean, we see the value in the secondary forms, but we get a little something from the throughput.
Yep.
We send the salt and anyone who goes to New York or anywhere along where it snows, we see the value of our salt because their roads are not passable with the snow if you don't have the salt in order to put on the road to melt the snow. So what we have, Madam Speaker, is so valuable. It is valuable, but to maintain the sustainable environment that we have. And when we export some of it, it is even value is added to it and we become the consumers. So today, Madam Speaker, this is a shift because what it does, Madam Speaker, is we see an architecture which is going to be refined in the future by this honorable Parliament. But today, it is this is a yellow blue letter day.
Blue letter.
This is a blue letter
Blue
day.
letter.
This is a blue letter day because it is a fundamental shift in how we have managed. And nobody in here can say that this, what ought to have been done before, was done. We can say, well, we should have done a little more of this or a little bit more of that, whether the minister or an authority. But what we cannot say is that what it does is that this valuable resource, it balances between responsible exploitation on the one hand and sustainability on the other.
Yeah.
The second thing is that it brings a more fair terms of trade, a more fair, more equitable terms of trade, rather than getting $1 or $2 from throughput What we are getting now, Madam Speaker, we are getting an equity interest.
Yes.
What we are getting, Madam Speaker, not just an equity interest, but we're getting royalty.
Payment for the mining rights.
We're getting increased royalty compared to the so-called throughput royalty. We're also getting, Madam Speaker, consistent with the policy of the government, that Bahamians should be given priority in this area. And Madam Speaker, you know, when I look at other countries and they say, whether it's American first, whether it's European first, whether it's, I don't have no problem, because I am unapologetic that when you come here as a guest, you come here just like when I go there. A priority for you. When you come here, priority for me, because this is my citizenship.
Yes.
This is mine. This is my sovereign space. And you are a guest in my sovereign space. And therefore, when it comes to the various engagement and participation to protect, just like when if I go and I do business in the United States, I have to pay tax. There are some areas are reserved for their citizens. I operate on their condition. So when we come here in this sovereign parliament, we have no apologies when we say that priority. Mr. Deputy, when we are engaged in the policy making and law making within our space, we recognize, as other countries in other parts of the world, that priority in terms of having the state on behalf of the people, having an equity interest, having a royalty interest, and having also a commitment or securing a commitment for the training of Bahamians, the participation of Bahamians, the purchase of goods and services from Bahamian businesses. That is the same thing that is done when we establish heads of agreement with the developers of resorts. It is the same obligation that in exchange for the privilege of doing business in our space, and having the tax-free and having the exemptions, that you commit to development of the Bahamian people. And therefore, what we see here, Mr. Deputy, is the same commitment in terms of contributing to national development. But what we also see, and this is very significant, Mr. Deputy, two functions. One, there is to be developed by the minister a mining policy. And this mining policy has two very interesting but important aspects. One is that it binds the government to consult with stakeholders. It is not the minister or the cabinet formulating the national mining policy. It is with the stakeholders of the civil society, and it is being framed as a statutory obligation on the minister. But what is also interesting in that particular provision, Mr. Deputy, is that the national policy will focus on investment in the sector, not only by foreigners, not only by foreign investors, but also by Bahamians. The question was raised today, well, we're not talking about being able to participate as small miners or small-scale mining by Bahamians, which the minister is obligated to do, but the minister, as part of the national mining policy, is obligated to design, encourage, and facilitate Bahamian ownership, participation by way of investment. And this is stated, clearly reflecting the commitment of primacy, priority to Bahamians, not only as workers, not only by way of employment, but also by way of investment. And we see, Mr. Deputy, one of the interesting areas here, and the quality. Before I go on, I just want to commend on the quality of the Bahamian aragonite. The research has demonstrated that the Bahamian, what is known as oolitic variety of aragonite, is one of the most purest biogenic and precipitated calcium carbonates. In other words, it allows manufacturers to produce this very translucent quality of glass. In other words, what we have, Mr. Deputy, is not only the natural resources, the mineral resources, but we also have a distinct quality of aragonite, which is rare in the world. And what this act does is that it provides this framework where more benefits will remain in the Bahamas. Bahamians would be better incentivized to own, and also that the license holders, investors who have a mining license, would be obligated to give priority to Bahamians as employers, but also, Mr. Deputy, as investors, and also as providers of goods and services. Now, Mr. Deputy, the issue of sustainability was raised, and I must admit that I was stunned when someone said that there is no commitment to sustainability and that they did not see the word sustainability in the Act. And when I look at Section 13, conditions for granting a mineral right, it says a mineral right shall not be granted to an applicant unless the minister is satisfied. A, the proposal of the applicant will ensure the most efficient and optimal use of the mineral resources concerned. B, the applicant has adequate financial resources, technical and industrial competence. And then it goes on, Mr. Deputy. The applicant is able, willing to comply with the conditions. In the case of a mining license, the applicant's plan and proposals for employment, training of Bahamians, and procurement of goods and services within the Bahamas. And then it goes on talking about the preservation of the character of the environment, including flora and fauna. Any effect on the water table or surface drainage system, the nature and location of other land uses that could be affected by the operation being applied for, danger of pollution to the environment, any other factors which, in the opinion of the minister, would be against the public interest and, Mr. Deputy, contrary to the national environmental policy. In other words, before one becomes a licensee, one has to satisfy the minister that the plan, first of all, you need an environmental management plan, an environmental impact plan, and you must satisfy the minister and also be consistent with the national environmental policy. So what we see, Mr. Deputy, is a clear obligation on the part of the applicant to demonstrate to the satisfaction of the minister that you are on a sustainable path. Not only that, but you also have, at the outset, Mr. Deputy, you have to provide a rehabilitation plan. That is, having carried out the mining activity, you have to show what remediation, what rehabilitation one will undertake in order to mitigate the effects of the mining. Secondly, Mr. Deputy, you have to provide a bond. In other words, your word and your promise is not enough. You have to provide a bond, in other words, in the form of a financial commitment that is continuing throughout the pendency of the license. And then at the end of the license, if you do not carry out the rehabilitation plan that you would have presented and may have been amended with the consent of the minister, your money. Because the question was raised, what security is there? As has happened with some of the developers and so on in our country who left employers holding the bag. And here we see, it is interesting that that was raised by colleagues from Grand Bahama. And we know how close the cement factory was to 8 Mile Rock.
Yeah.
And we know that in 8 Mile Rock, many a family put their clothes on the line.
Yep.
And the color of the clothes for many, many years was polluted because of the proximity to the cement plant, to the residential community. What we see here, Mr. Deputy, is that the location of the mining operation before permission is given, the proximity to residential, the proximity to settlements in our family islands, the proximity to other institutions within our society are factors which are taken into account. So in conclusion, Mr. Deputy, lessons learned from our past, taken into consideration, safeguards in terms of a bond, also in terms of a very stringent commitment to sustainability, itemized in the bill, and finally, a registry which makes every transaction open, what I call the sunshine principle. You can go to the registry, you can find out the name, the address, the permit, the scope of the permit, and therefore the public has an opportunity to police, what I call the citizen attorney general, to see what the obligation of the permit holder is and to take action and work with the government to ensure monitoring, inspection, and compliance. Mr. Deputy, with those brief words, Fort Charlotte supports the bill.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many? The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Freetown.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I hadn't intended, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to contribute to this debate, but after hearing Killarney, what he had to say, and some else that fell, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I felt compelled to contribute. Firstly, Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me, before going into the meat of my contribution, send condolences to the family of Elon Moxie, his brother, Captain Floyd Moxie of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, works with me, and I extend my condolences to Captain Moxie and the entire Moxie family. Also, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Jeffrey August Williams was my advisor in junior achievement. And as a very impressionable senior high school student, I fell under the influence of Mr. Williams, who had a way of calming down exuberant young men and teaching us some valuable lessons on life. While, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I didn't win Most Distinguished Junior Achiever when he was my advisor, but I feel that his influence did assist me, because the following year I was the Most Distinguished Junior Achiever for 1985, and I give great credit to Mr. Williams. He was a great guy. Mr. Deputy Speaker, one more matter. Today is World Autism Awareness Day. Even President Donald Trump declared World Autism Awareness Day in the United States of America, as it is all over the world. And to that end, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is why I am dressed in blue and I have my autism pin. But the theme this year, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is advancing neurodiversity and the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Mr. Deputy Speaker, autism is a condition that is appearing more and more in the world today. In the constituency of Freetown, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are at least 7 children on the spectrum I have seen, from very severe to mild.
It is a challenge for parents, Mr. Deputy Speaker, who require support and understanding as they deal with their special children. There is a saying, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that God gives special children to special people because he knows that they will be able to handle it. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I would like for persons to be aware of what is happening around them. In the past, these children used to be locked away, and happily today, that is no longer the case. Mr. Deputy Speaker, though, if I may move to the mining bill, and you would see, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it was tabled in 2023. That is roughly 2 years ago. And I think that Golden Isles can attest that in that long period that it was there publicly, that there have been no significant, meaningful entreaties to him to amend it. Indeed, there was a previous manifestation of the mining bill that was amended to what it is now based on consultation. We are a government, the government led by the member for Cat Island, Rumkey, and San Salvador, a humble man, is a government that does not believe that we know it all, that we take advice, we consider it, and when necessary, we make changes. I say that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because there is some illusion. Firstly, that there's an election coming July or August of this year. And even if it were, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for a party that can't keep 7, it seems highly unlikely that they could gain a majority. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there's this talk about an authority. And I would just say this. The construct of the act is that all mineral rights, even if it's under your property, ain't your property. It's the property of the people, and it's vested in the treasurer of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Yes. Now, who may deal with property which is vested in the treasurer is a matter of law. And I suspect, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to have a authority and not a minister acting with regard to property, one would have to change who all of these rights vest in. And it would be curious for property of the people to vest in anybody other than the treasurer. I say that, Mr. Deputy Speaker, because I said to my colleague from Golden Isles, this is an historic day because the member for Golden Isles will go down in the records of this country as having brought this piece of legislation. He will go down as having talked about it, having presided over a first draft of it, having received some comments from some persons, and so having presided over a second draft of it, but he will ultimately be known for, after a period of time, stopping the talking and getting down to some action and getting it done. Yes. Yes. And that is fundamentally the difference between these two sides. We may have, I can get to that tonight. Believe me, I can get to that. No unity. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that is truly the difference between us. And Sanance is correct. Thank you. He got tired of just the talking. And so he came over to the doers. And he fits right in because he got it done. Mr. Deputy Speaker, in many, many things, we are criticized, not for not doing things, you know. We're criticized for not doing it fast enough when our critics did nothing at all. we're criticized for how we're doing something, even though it's supported, while our critics did nothing at all. And that is what we face. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, our shoulders are broad, our hearts are strong, and we will not be deterred. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I was surprised today. This was one of the most focused debates we've had in a while. Yes, I agree. Very focused. I wonder why. I guess there are 5 more people to go and we could have 5 focused debates. But Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member for Killarney, in his inimitable way, raised some issues that have to be addressed. Mr. Deputy Speaker, both he and Marco City, but dealing with him first, Mr. Deputy Speaker. He says there is a conflict of interest. Mind you, he never defines what that conflict of interest is. And a conflict of interest is when you have one interest from one role you hold, and it conflicts with another role you hold. So if you play no part, if you play absolutely no part in the National Economic Council, the Bahamas Investment Authority that deals with these things, you have no duty that can conflict with another. But you know, an example of a conflict of interest is why Golden Isles ended up leaving the FNM. I read it. He's a brave man. And he got up in this place, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and says he has a problem with the FNM renting the town center mall from a member of the FNM cabinet who makes that decision. And so that's a conflict of interest. I give him that. He speaks the facts. So you had that cabinet member who would be voting on do we lease the town center mall for the post office. And that's one interest that he had. And the interest that would conflict on that is, I can put this $50 million, was it? There's $50 million in my pocket. Those are 2 conflicts. Those are 2 duties that conflict with one another. Are you getting value for money? Is this where it should be, or should you finish the building that it started, or should I get $50 million? And so he was sitting down, my duty to country, $50 million. My duty to country, $50 million. And guess what? He took the $50 million. And they complain about us and characterize us when that is their record. And so, you know, Golden Eyes, that's something that occurred to me, and I had to Google it, you know. I had to Google it, and something was in the back of my mind that either Golden Eyes left the FNM over natural resources or conflict, and it was conflict. You know, it's not the party, Central Grand Bahama was a part of always, he says. That's his words today. Mr. Deputy Speaker, we were told by Killarney that there are issues, and tangentially by Marco City, that this is okay in principle, but there's an issue about enforcement. That is what was said. Again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the member for Golden Isles can tell you, we're a party who do things with sense. So not only are we putting in place regulation, but we're addressing the enforcement of that regulation. We have been speaking about this new agency that is on the way, the Bahamas Wildlife Enforcement Network, that will be an armed, disciplined security force to enforce all laws relative to natural resources in this country, this being one. We anticipate the legislation should come to Parliament shortly, Mr. Deputy Speaker. But while we wait, I am told that Golden Isles was in the bush with them.
Yes.
That he was in the bush with them,
Yes.
and that the group that has the designated lead of Commander Desiree Cornet of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, and recently added Assistant Superintendent Forrester Carroll Jr. of the Royal Bahamas Police Force. Golden Isles was in the bush with ASP Carroll, and they lock up 6 people, one time, for doing nonsense in the bush. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is not a matter where we're just talking about it. They rightly talk about enforcement, and they were talking about enforcement, but we're doing something about enforcement. And that is basically the difference between them and us. You know, I'm not a modern person, but you know, they have people are mocked now. They mocked our Commissioner of Police, say she letting the little children teach her how to dance. They ain't like us. But that's correct. They are not like us. We are doers. They are thinkers. They think. They talk. They do very little. They complain. They don't act. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is just as simple as that. Regardless of what we do, we ain't doing it fast enough, we ain't doing it good enough, said by people who did nothing. Finally, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I think South and Central Andrews have something for you, St. Barnabas, and I'll leave him to give that to you.
Yeah, please.
But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, finally, the amazing thing is this. When I was in the UK, Mr. Deputy Speaker, in law school, I was a member of the Conservative Party. I was a young conservative, not a Labour Party member. That was my, and is my political philosophy. So to hear people talking as if Bahamian involvement in ownership will always be small is really disheartening to me. To talk about it being small term only is disheartening. We have Bahamian entrepreneurs who are operating at a very high level. The very sad thing, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is the persons most likely to attack them, to denigrate them when they're doing big things are other Bahamians. And that is a legacy of our slave past that we must really get beyond. There are Bahamians who can do $100 million projects, $200 million projects, $500 million projects. And it is not always something to denigrate. We must get past that as a people, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and until we do, we will not have liberated our minds, and we will still be in mental slavery and bondage. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Freetown, and that's an historic name, Freetown was where freed slaves settled after emancipation. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this representative of Freetown will urge that we truly seek liberation. I think that Donald called this day Liberation Day in the USA, and they put 10% tariffs on us. But it's Liberation Day in the US by all accounts, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and there's no reason whatsoever that we should not be freely liberated here and stop thinking small, stop acting small. This is a regime that will invite and embrace Bahamian ingenuity. I'm absolutely sure that we have it. And like a Baptist preacher, Mr. Deputy, one last thing, finally.
You got a couple more.
Only one. I'm not quite Baptist yet. But there was talk, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about why was the term 25 years or until the mineral is exhausted if we're talking about sustainability. The thinking being that to say until the mineral is exhausted is to suggest that we're going to permit someone to take all of a mineral from us. Well, Mr. Deputy Speaker, there are some minerals of which that is true. Everyone who operates a gold mine seeks to remove every bit of gold from the mine before they stop mining. So not everything is renewable, not everything is meant to not be extracted. And so, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that really indicates the shallowness of the thinking. This mining bill applies to just about anything you can mine. And as the member for Fort Charlotte has indicated, and from anywhere, even from the deep blue sea. And so we are not only visionary, we are doers. And I congratulate the member for Golden Isles for having persevered from thinking to talking to considering to drafting to redrafting and now finally moving this historic bill that Freetown wholly supports.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Killarney.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. I listened to the member from Freetown, and I spoke about a conflict of interest, and the member said it is not a conflict of interest. Mr. Deputy, I have spoken, before I come in here, I do my homework. I consult, I research. Before it was encyclopedia, now it's Google. And yeah, it's up here. It's up here. And I have spoken to some of the most learned gentlemen, not only in the Bahamas, but Caribbean, who were in school with me, who are now judges, the most learned. And they all said it's an overt conflict of interest and involvement of the office of the Prime Minister. But most importantly, what they point out, now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to say that you are a gentleman who's unscrupulous. So, but you interpret it yourself. You're a lawyer. What I'm saying, Mr. Deputy, what has been explained to me, that a lawyer defends his client. If his client is paying him to try and convince others that the ocean is white, you have some unscrupulous lawyers. And they will proceed, take the money, and defend that the ocean is white when it looks blue to us. So all I'm saying is, the member is a member of that team. I'm no lawyer, but he's a lawyer. He's defending his client. That's a commitment he made. His client is the office of the Prime Minister and the given party. Now, I'm not going to argue with you on no legal point because I can't win. I can't win. I am not a lawyer. But I will argue that what you said, I do not agree.
Member for
many
Killarney.
learned scholars throughout the world, throughout the Caribbean, do not agree with you.
The Chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Freetown.
By training, I'm a lawyer. Unfortunately, as the Minister of National Security, I've had to give that up for at least the next 2 years, and if by the leave of the Prime Minister, perhaps the next 7 years, at least. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the point is very simple. The member is saying he consulted lawyers, and anyone can find many of them. The point made to him was that if he is saying there's a conflict of interest, he needs to define two duties. Perhaps he could have these judges do it for him. Like, one duty as a cabinet minister is to get the best price for the Bahamas government. Your interest as the owner of the town center mall is to get as much money as possible for your asset. And those are two duties that obviously conflict, because the government would want to pay as little as possible, whereas the businessman wants to get as much as possible. That is a clear conflict. You're able to point out two duties. So I'm not concerned with the opinion of even judges, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I used to have a saying that if a judge ruled against me, he was wrong, and I would just appeal him to the next court. But if he could just do that, and I would say the post office in the town center mall is a good example. Less money as possible for the government, as much money as possible for the cabinet member, and they chose the $50 million. And that's how you look at a conflict of interest. Two duties that are inconsistent, one with the other.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Killarney.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy. The matter at the post office, we have spoken about that repeatedly. You know, one thing I want everyone in here to know, prime ministers see a lot of things. Prime ministers know a lot of things. Prime ministers sometimes stay quiet because they don't want to reveal certain things. I would ask you to try and review the files, and then you will see who the culprits were. You will learn what I know, and there are many people who don't really want to say the facts. But if I was certain that you would remain quiet, I would tell you the facts. I would tell you the facts. On your mind, the only thing you will say, excuse this, Mr. Deputy, but this is a biblical term. You would say, Jesus Christ, I didn't know it was this bad. That's all you'd say. But if I was guaranteed you wouldn't talk, I'll tell you what deal was trying to be made under you all, but people scared to talk. That's all I say.
Thank you, Honourable Member. As many, the Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Golden Isles.
Thank you, thank you.
Are we going to suspend?
Mr. Deputy Speaker, thank you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as a government, we recognize the enormous potential of the mining sector to drive economic growth, to generate employment, and foster infrastructure development. However, Mr. Deputy, this potential must not come at the cost of our environment, public health, or future generations. The Mining Bill 2023, this bill strikes a delicate balance. It incentivizes investment and innovation while ensuring accountability, environmental integrity, and social responsibility. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this bill is not the end, but the beginning of a new chapter. Its success will depend on the commitment of all stakeholders, from ministries and the local authorities to the private sector, to academia, and every citizen. We must remember our natural resources are not infinite. They are entrusted to us for safekeeping, not only for profit, but for the preservation of ecosystems, cultures, and livelihoods. Therefore, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I call on every stakeholder to embrace the spirit of this bill, to mine with honor, to invest with ethics, and we shall continue to govern with foresight. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I wrap this up, for me this date is historic. As I said earlier, it's foundational. And as we stand in this House today, I recall in 2020, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I stood on the side opposite in the corner as an independent and raised the call to protect and democratize the use of our natural resources. Mr. Deputy Speaker, as I look now and I reflect, this PLP government today offers to our people a robust regime for the protection of our people's assets. We have kept our promise to change the narrative and to set the course for revolutionizing our Commonwealth in this sector. It is now policy in the form that this bill anticipates, that the members of this House, we have decided to be on one accord today. I'm reminded that the Bible states in Psalm 133:1, behold how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell in unity. Mr. Deputy, I would ask the House to please permit me to just claim this moment as I reflect. I've been on this journey for a long time, fighting for our natural resources. And I've come full circle. And I can say God has been good. God has been faithful. It has always been about the people. It has always been for our people. And Mr. Deputy, today has been all about our people. This bill is for the Bahamian people. And so again, I'm thankful that even though the side opposite sought to be divisive, but they allowed their maturity to kick in and they stayed on board. And so all of us today on this bill, we are one as we should be. And so thank you for your cooperation and support in the passage of this bill. And so, Mr. Deputy, as I always say, may Almighty God continue to bless the Commonwealth of the Bahamas and make the wealth common. I so rest.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Oh, she's coming back.
Yeah, the chair recognizes the Honorable Member for Golden Isles.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Attorney General and the staff, and also for the Minister of State, some persons from the ministry, Mr. Thane Thompson, Mr. Keno Cambridge, and all the persons, Mr. Keith Philippe, and all those persons who participated and who contributed to this bill, and for this bill coming to fruition today.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Oh, we did there. The bill? Yeah. The chair recognizes the
Yes,
honourable member for Freetown.
Madam Speaker, I now move that the question now be put.
Thank you, honourable member. Is there a seconder? Second. Thank you, honourable members. It's been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a second time and committed. A bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. Ordered that the bill be read a second time and committed.
A bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters.
For the second reading?
No further second reading, Madam Speaker. I now move that the House dissolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker in the chair.
Is there a seconder? Second. Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the House do now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker in the chair. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The House will now resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole with the Deputy Speaker in the chair.
Committee of the Whole.
As Deputy Speaker, the mining bill, I move that the long title of the bill be agreed.
Is there a seconder? It has been moved and seconded that the long title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The long title of the bill is agreed.
I now move, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that Clause 1, the short title and commencement of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the short title of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The short title of the bill is agreed.
I now move, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that Clause 2 of the bill be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 2 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Clauses 2 of the bill is agreed.
I now move, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that Clause 3 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
The chair recognizes the honorable member for Golden Isles.
Yes, Clause 3, there's an amendment to be made to delete clause and substitute the following. 3, application of the Act. 1, this Act shall apply to the islands of the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, inclusive of the island of Grand Bahama and the port area as defined in A, the agreement set out in the schedule to the Hawksbill Creek, Grand Bahama, Deepwater Harbor and Industrial Area Act, Chapter 261, and B, Section 2 of the Freeport Bylaws Act, Chapter 29, and 2, where any extraction of a mineral is A, used directly in construction works authorized under heads of agreement with the government, and B, not intended for commercial exploitation. The following provisions of the Act shall apply. 1, Sections 13, 17, 19, and 27 of Part 3. 2, Sections 37 to 40, 48, 49, and 51 of Part 5, and 3, Part and 3 and 3, Mr. Deputy Speaker, Part 8. Thank you.
Is there a seconder? Elizabeth? It has been moved and seconded that the bill be amended as read. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The bill is amended as read.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I now move that clauses 4 to 71 of the bill be agreed.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that clauses 4 through 71 of the bill be agreed. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Clauses 4 through 71 is agreed.
I now move that the bill in its entirety be agreed.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill in its entirety be agreed. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The bill in its entirety is agreed.
I now move that the House do resume with the Speaker in the chair.
It has been moved and seconded that the Speaker do now take the chair. As many as are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The Speaker will now take the chair. Madam Speaker, I beg leave to report that the committee have examined several bills making amendments thereto.
Honorable members, the Deputy Speaker and Chairman of the Committee of the Whole has reported that the committee has examined the bill, having made amendments thereto. Third reading.
Madam Speaker, I move for the third reading and passing of the Mining Bill 2023.
Thank you, Honorable Member. It has been moved and seconded that the following bill be read a third time and passed. A bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Ordered that the bill be read a third time and passed.
Bill for an act to regulate mineral prospecting, mining, and related matters.
Order that this bill do now pass, and the title thereof declared to be Mining Bill 2025. Mining Act? Mining Act 2025. Thank you for the correction. Order that the clerk do now take the bills passed by this House today to the Honorable Senate for their concurrence. We will now revert back to the order of business. Consideration of Senate amendments, resolutions, member statements. The chair recognizes the honorable member for South and Central Andros.
Yes, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Earlier, the Member of Parliament for St. Barnabas laid a letter that was given from Water and Sewage to a client, and one of the key steps that the corporation takes to collect their arrears. The member felt the need to stop short of reading the entire letter, where I will read what he omitted, the last paragraph. Please safeguard your credit rating and avoid unnecessary cost and inconvenience by acting quickly. If you require a financial installment plan, or if you have questions or concerns regarding your account, please contact our Revenue Operations section immediately, and gave the following numbers. But Madam Speaker, Water and Sewage works with all of our customers, especially the sewer ones on New Providence, which large arrears to facilitate payment plans. And to date, Madam Speaker, no actual disconnection has been made, and we work with customers to avoid the such. 2 clients that were issued letters to the date, Madam Speaker, and in the area that the member for St. Barnabas spoke about. One client made a payment within 2 weeks, bringing their bill down by 50%, and actually they're in a credit right now, Madam Speaker. And the other account has consistently made payments and has a payment plan that they made just a week later. Madam Speaker, he also mentioned the mall at Marathon location, which was closed due to an operational decision because of low traffic. At that point, 2.5 years, low traffic. At that point, 2.5 years were left on the lease, what would have been up in August 2026. And it was decided to break the lease at a fee of $60,000, which would then save the corporation $250,000 annually. And for those who may not know the figures, Madam Speaker, $625,000 was saved by the corporation, which netted $500,000 plus, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, clients still have various ways to pay their bills and deal with customer service issues via online, telephone, and direct deposit. Madam Speaker, I could then say Water and Sewage is committed to exceptional customer service and also while making strong business decisions, Madam Speaker. I also have a statement that I want to read, Madam Speaker, and lay. Madam Speaker, I still have two more minutes. Madam Speaker, it's with deep sadness we acknowledge the passing of Elon Moxie, a beloved Bahamian musician and a proud son of Mangrove Key Andrus. His music touched hearts, his talent inspired many, and his legacy will live on through the melodies he shared with the world. Last year, I had the privilege to honor him by presenting him with the key to the island along with the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture and also the member for North Andros and the Berry Islands, recognizing him as a son of the soil and celebrating his lasting contributions to our cultural and musical landscape. His impact as a musician and as an Androsian will never be forgotten. And today, Madam Speaker, I want to pay tribute to him, not just for the songs he sang, but for the joy, pride, and inspiration he brought to so many. We extend our heartfelt condolences to his family, his friends, to the Andros community, and all who were blessed by his gift. May his soul rest in peace, Madam Speaker. And Madam Speaker, to ensure that I get to go home, I just want to say a happy birthday to my loved one, Tamara Lundy, on her special day today, Madam Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
You waiting for me to acknowledge you, eh?
Yes, ma'am.
No. The chair recognizes the honorable members of St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much. I thank my good cousin from Long Island, Madam Speaker, for recognizing me. Just to be clear, Madam Speaker, when I raised the issue about the concern by the water and sewage customer, the one thing I did do is say, in terms of full disclosure, that this person might have had a bill. The question was this now a policy of water and sewage to disconnect, if they feel they are justified, if they need to disconnect sewer services from the Bahamian people? That was the question, Madam Speaker, and it's clearly outlined. It's clearly outlined in the letter. I spoke to the fact too, Madam Speaker, that in the letter, it basically talks about the fact that they would be creating a dire situation for the customer. So they're threatening the customer under the umbrella of creating a health crisis in a resident of a Bahamian, Madam Speaker. So that was the issue. On the issue also, Madam Speaker, Bahamians are frustrated and have been expressing it regarding the fact that there's only one place where they can inquire about all of the various issues affecting their water and sewage account. And it is at the main office, because the other outlets that they go to are unable to provide that information, Madam Speaker. So I hear the honorable member, but that does not line up with what Bahamians are saying who visit the mall, who utilize all of the services that water and sewage have, Madam Speaker.
And just for clarity and information, let me give the website wsc.com.bs. They can also call the office customer service lines. We also have a chat through the app that they could talk and speak to, Madam Speaker. Thank you. Digital technology. Yes.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Nassau Village.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just wanted to take the opportunity to invite all residents out to the town hall meeting that's being held by National Security for the Clear Hold Build Initiative. To all residents, this is an opportunity to discuss all of the work that has been ongoing in the constituency with the clearing of vacant lots and removal of derelict vehicles. It's going to be held at 7 p.m. in the Nassau Village Community Center tomorrow, Thursday. So I invite all, pardon? Yes. So I invite all residents out to discuss, and also invite and welcome the Minister of National Security and also the Minister of Education, who should be conducting the actual seminars and programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. You ready to table? Give me 1 minute. 1 minute, ma'am. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Central and South Andrews. You like to table?
Yes, I'll table the document, Madam Speaker.
Order the document be tabled. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. Order the document to lie on the table. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Yamacraw.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Just very quickly, it would be remiss of me not to stand in this honorable place today and also send my condolences, heartfelt condolences to the family of Elon Moxie, who would have opened. He was the artist who appeared at the opening of the first Yamacraw Farmers Market, where the Honorable Prime Minister would have spoken and officially given opening remarks. His performance was always lively, and we will definitely miss him in Yamacraw. Actually, we had him on the list for the second anniversary that is coming up this Saturday. The Yamacraw Farmers Market will be held in the same location on the Nassau East South Park, and we will have live performances, games, and anniversary celebrations as we would have had in the first anniversary. But we do sincerely miss our performing artist, Bahamian legend, Elon Moxie. Madam Speaker, I also want to wish condolences to a few families in Yamacraw who would have lost loved ones. The loved ones of Livingston Forbes Mackey, the brother of one of very good supporters, David McPhee, out of Elizabeth Estates. Ms. Myrtle Murphy, who we would have buried this Saturday. The family of Ms. Myrtle Murphy, our sister Maydon Murphy, who is a stalwart in the party, and also Cameron Roll, the parents, Craven and Coretta Roll. Those parents and their family mourn the loss of Cameron Roll. Also, Ms. Effie Camp, I mentioned, she is a 101-year-old we have lost. And also the family, including Mr. Vernal Camp, who is his mother, who is her son. But that family suffered a tremendous loss. And also the family of Shamita Roll from Elizabeth Estates, who was a vendor at the Thelma Gibson Primary School. That family still mourn a loss, and they would have buried her this Saturday past. So of all of the bereaved, we say, may their souls rest in peace and rise in glory. Thank you for the time, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for St. Barnabas.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, just wish to advise the constituents of St. Barnabas, but in particular Coconut Grove. We've been talking about some time the fact that the Coconut Grove Clinic on Ackland Street it's been down, and that the member for Tall Pines, as the Minister of Health did indicate early in this administration, about the forthcoming clinic. And I see now, Madam Speaker, that the government has invited the Member of Parliament for St. Barnabas to the official groundbreaking of the Coconut Grove Advanced Health Center on Blue Hill Road, opposite NIB, next week, Wednesday at 1:30. So I encourage constituents to come out and to see the groundbreaking ceremony, Madam Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further member statements? Okay. Appointment to select committees. Instruction to select committee. Discharge of select committees. Notices for future meetings.
I renew all notice in the name of the government, Madam Speaker.
Renew all notices in the name of the opposition.
Thank you. Adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I move that on its rising, the House do adjourn to Wednesday, the 23rd of April at 10 a.m.
They're obviously skipping question time again. I know that Freetown claims he doesn't fear, but why are we missing question time again? That's set down in the rule book and should be occurring. Why are we skipping Freetown question time again, Freetown?
Because, Madam Speaker, I'm moving that we adjourn to the 23rd of April at 10 a.m.
Second.
So much for action, Madam Speaker. All talk, all talk.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the House at its rising do adjourn to Wednesday, 23rd of April, 2025 at 10 a.m. As many are in favor will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. Final adjournment.
Madam Speaker, I now move that the House do adjourn to the 23rd, Wednesday, the 23rd of April at 10 a.m.
Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the House do now adjourn to Wednesday, 23rd of April, 2025 at 10 a.m.
All right.